Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 88, Pikachu Revolts. The episode begins with Ash and the gang on Lapras on their way to the next island, as Ash complains about how fucking hungry he was, as due to being on the ocean, they had no food. Tracy then looks ahead and thankfully manages to spot the next island, Mandarin Island, but when Misty and Ash look, they note that there was no actual island, but just buildings floating on the water. Tracy states, however, that it's still officially counted as an island. Meanwhile, on the island, two mysterious figures were watching Ash and the gang approach on Lapras through the video feed in some sort of secret building, and they immediately recognized them, declaring that they wanted revenge. These people were revealed to be Butch and Cassidy of Team Rocket. Eventually, Ash and the gang reach Mandarin Island, with Ash recalling Lapras, and they head into the mainland, but immediately spot a Grimer, Voltorb, and 4 Magnemite attacking their trainers for some reason. Ash and the gang immediately run to help, being the protagonists that they were, but as they run, Pikachu suddenly stops in its tracks and begins to get angry, as it refuses to respond to any of Ash's comments. Instead, just staring at him with an evil stare. Ash obviously goes to question this, as Pikachu had never acted like this before, but then suddenly, Misty's Togepi jumps out of her arms and proceeds to get the same angry look on its face and not respond to Misty as well. And that was definitely unusual for Togepi, so Ash and the gang knew something was up. Ash tries to question Pikachu once more, but he, along with Misty and Tracy, are blown back by Pikachu's Thundershock. With Ash and the gang down, Pikachu and Togepi take the opportunity to go and join the other seemingly angry Pokemon, and Ash tries his best to stop them, as he doesn't want them to join forces with evil. However, the Magnemite then come up to him, and all 4 of them shock him, but he still continues on to Pikachu and Togepi. However, his efforts end up being futile, as although the Magnemite didn't work, Voltorb then comes in and uses self-destruct, which causes a huge explosion and smoke to start arising. And when the smoke clears, Ash finds that all the Pokemon had since escaped, and he cries out in sadness. Being alerted by the explosion, the island's officer Jenny rides up in her motorcycle, now in a new attire as opposed to the ones in Kanto, and Ash immediately tells her what had happened to the Pokemon, to which she confirms that this wasn't an isolated incident, and a lot of Pokemon had been disobeying their trainers lately. Just as she suggests that they would go back to the police station and she would explain more, a Ghastly then interrupts her, and she pushes him away, although he still follows as they go back to the police station, with Jenny allowing, as she had actually grown quite close to it. Jenny then clarifies that she first encountered the Ghastly around the time that all of the other Pokemon started disobeying their trainers and disappearing, and noted how Ghastly didn't seem to exhibit any of the same symptoms that any of the other Pokemon had, seemingly being unaffected by whatever else was making these Pokemon act this way. They decide to call Professor Oak and question him because, he's a professor, he should know things, and he hypothesizes that there was likely an outside force of some kind that was making the Pokemon act this way, reaffirming Jenny's suspicion that it wasn't just the Pokemon being angry. Jenny then realizes that this outside force that Professor Oak mentioned could be a psychic attack of some kind that was being used to manipulate all the Pokemon, as since Ghastly was a ghost type, it wasn't affected by psychic attacks. So that would explain why Ghastly was unaffected. Oak simply agrees and hangs up, wishing them good luck. Damn, so Officer Jenny did most of the hypothesizing, man. You barely even did shit. You were just like, there's a force responsible. Like, no shit. Anyways, Tracy then states a hypothesis of his own, which was that it wasn't just a Pokemon that was making all these other Pokemon act this way, but their owner as well, as he stated that there was no way that a Pokemon itself would be this evil. There had to be someone manipulating the evil Pokemon. Ash agreed and told Officer Jenny essentially that they wanted her help, and she agreed as well. Let's go, because she obviously wanted to figure out the mystery too. Ash then declares that the first step that they needed to take was finding the psychic Pokemon, as if they were able to locate it, then they could get it to send all the Pokemon back to normal. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had arrived on Mandarin Island as well, and they pointed out how all of the buildings made it look like New York. Of course, they didn't call it New York, though. They simply called it the Big Apple, as New York didn't officially exist in the Pokemon world. They then proceed to call this place the Big Orange, due to it being in the Orange Archipelago. Obviously, being in the Big Orange, they wanted to go exploring and shopping, but Meowth quickly scratched them in anger, reminding them that it was merely a distraction, and what they were actually here to do was steal Pikachu as usual. Jessie was about to punish Meowth for scratching them, reminding him that they simply just wanted to fucking go shopping, and Meowth goes in to attack Jessie back. However, Meowth freezes just as Pikachu did, implying that it was affected by whatever the psychic attack was. Jessie and James immediately question what the fuck was up with Meowth, especially as it proceeds to run away, so they decide to follow it. Team Rocket's chase ends up leading them to a broadcast tower, and they continue to chase Meowth, even as he jumps into the broadcast tower through a little hole on the wall. I don't know how they managed to fit in the hole, but Meowth goes in first, and he drops through a pipe into the room from the beginning of the episode, where Butch and Cassidy were. The ruckus immediately gets Butch and Cassidy's attention, and when they see Meowth, they instantly recognize him as belonging to Jessie and James. Just then, Jessie and James fall through the pipe, and they recognize Butch and Cassidy as well, and the two proceed to get into an argument just as you would expect, as they both try and do their motto, but they end up cutting each other off, which just pisses all them off even more. When Cassidy throws some insults at Jessie about their childhood that they knew each other from, Jessie gets pissed off, and she proceeds to ask them how they even escaped from jail in the first place when they were locked up, and Cassidy explains that Giovanni had personally bailed them out, which just pisses James and Jessie off even further, because Giovanni would never do something like that for them. They then counter that Giovanni bailed them out because he actually trusted them, since unlike Jessie and James, they were actually able to steal Pokemon. James and Jesse rebutted this by countering that Butch and Cassidy probably didn't actually steal any Pokemon either, but Butch and Cassidy then state that they had stolen every Pokemon on Mandarin Island, as they reveal all of the angry Pokemon, including Togepi, Pikachu, and now even Meowth, who had went over to join all the other angry Pokemon. Jesse and James are obviously pissed off by having been shown up by Butch and Cassidy, especially since they took Meowth, but they did admit that Butch and Cassidy managing to catch all these Pokemon was impressive, and stated how they wanted them for themselves, and were going to take them. So, Team Rocket proceeded to do just that, as they sent out their Arbok and Weezing, along with their Victory Bell and Lickitung. That's right, they actually used their second Pokemon for once, but Victory Bell appeared to be useless, as it immediately just tried to bite James's head. Suddenly, Butch decides to counter Team Rocket's attack by snapping his fingers, which causes a Drowsy to drop down, being attached to a machine. Jesse and James question in fear what Butch and Cassidy were using the Drowsy for, as the Drowsy then uses its Hypnosis attack to give Team Rocket's Pokemon the same evil look that all the other Pokemon had. Butch then answers Team Rocket's questions, revealing that the Drowsy was the psychic Pokemon that was causing all the Pokemon to act against their trainers. Butch explained that the device that they had the Drowsy hooked up to increased its psychic powers, and if they hooked it up to the broadcast tower, then the psychic attack would be spread throughout the entire island, and it in fact was, and that's what had been causing all the Pokemon to act this way, as the Hypnosis attack was widespread. With Butch having revealed the plan, he then realizes that that means that he can't keep Team Rocket conscious for long, as they could spill the beans. So, he orders all of Team Rocket's Pokemon, including Meowth, to attack them, and they do, due to being under the control of Drowsy. As Team Rocket scream in both anger and fear, and pass out. Eventually, though, they come to, and find themselves inside of the Pokemon Center on Mandarin Island. Not only that, though, but they were surrounded by Ash and the gang, as Ash and the gang were the ones who had found them on the side of the road after they were knocked out by their Pokemon, implying that they must have been thrown out of the building. Ash and the gang then proceeded to try and treat Team Rocket's wounds at the request of Officer Jenny, who wanted to heal people, of course, even if they were criminals, but thankfully for Misty, who had gotten pissed off at James when he moved when she was trying to do his cast. Officer Jenny then tells Ash and the gang to stop treating them, realizing the fact that Team Rocket were likely the ones responsible for the psychic Pokemon incident. Ash then proceeds to question Team Rocket on if they were truly the ones behind the psychic Pokemon incident, and also asks them where the fuck Meowth was, as he wasn't with them, and that was suspicious. Team Rocket simply state that all their Pokemon were gone and had abandoned them, including Meowth, and they just try to leave in shame, depressed at the fact that they were now alone. Hearing that their Pokemon had also gone missing, though, this immediately triggers the attention of Ash and the gang, and they immediately stop Team Rocket from leaving by jumping in front of the door and demanding that they tell them what they know, explaining that they wanted to help save all the missing Pokemon, including theirs. This convinces Jesse and James to oblige, as they explain what had happened and agree to help Ash and the gang get all the Pokemon back. Likely just due to the fact that they wanted their own back. But regardless, Team Rocket and Ash and the gang then come up with a plan to get into the broadcast tower, which involved Jesse and James essentially going up to the broadcast tower's security cameras with a huge cart of Pokeballs and claiming to Butch and Cassidy that they wanted to make peace and were therefore giving them a whole bunch of Pokemon that they had captured free of charge, adding that they would like to work together in exchange. Butch and Cassidy are obviously skeptical of Team Rocket, but once Team Rocket shows them all the Pokeballs, the hundreds and hundreds of Pokeballs, they are enticed to let them in. Just then, though, as Jesse and James approach Butch and Cassidy with the cart, they then roll the cart at full force at them, sending it flying towards them, as Ash and the gang, along with Officer Jenny, pop out, and Jenny declares that Butch and Cassidy were under arrest, and they all demand the Pokemon back. Butch and Cassidy obviously refused, being like, why would we surrender when we were still winning? I mean, yeah, you've broken into our little hideout, but we still have this Drowsy here that's capable of controlling all these Pokemon, so they'll do whatever we want, we can just have them all attack you. Ash immediately questions how Butch and Cassidy were able to control all these Pokemon, just as Team Rocket did before, but Ash then uses his Pokedex to scan the Drowsy, and it reveals the fact that Drowsy in fact had psychic powers, which makes Ash realize that Drowsy was in fact the Pokemon responsible, without Butch and Cassidy having to do their exposition all over again. Butch and Cassidy then do exactly what they said they were going to do, which was have Drowsy make all of the Pokemon attack Ash and the gang. Drowsy proceeds to use its psychic powers, which causes all the Pokemon to begin marching towards Ash and the gang, as Officer Jenny tries to command the Ghastly to attack the Drowsy and cancel out its psychic powers, but unfortunately the Ghastly isn't strong enough. All of the electric, fire, and water Pokemon then proceed to combine all of their attacks into one huge multi-elemental blast. But thankfully, Ghastly isn't entirely useless, so it manages to use its deflect attack to send the attack back at the Pokemon, but it doesn't go back all the way, and the two attacks essentially begin fighting each other in a tug-of-war. Pikachu then comes up to Ash, and he tries to use his Thunderbolt on him to shock him, and Ash is unfortunately unable to dodge. But then, when Pikachu goes in for a second Thunderbolt, he is able to dodge this one, and this gives him an idea, as when he dodged, it made Pikachu even angrier. He continues to dodge Pikachu's Thunderbolts, making sure to tease him after everyone misses to further piss him off. Thanks to Ghastly deflecting the other Pokemon, Ash is able to successfully make it over to Drowsy's machine, without any interference, aside from Pikachu, and he simply tells Pikachu to shock him again, which Pikachu obliges to, being immensely angry by this point. And just as Ash planned, although the Thundershock does shock him as he screams in pain, it also shocks the machine, destroying it and freeing the Drowsy from the machine as well, therefore removing the evil effect on all the Pokemon. leading Togepi to happily jump in Misty's arms, Pikachu to happily jump in Ash's arms, and Meowth to return to Team Rocket, as well as their other Pokemon, who they happily welcome back. James then immediately has his Weezing use Smog, which blinds Butch and Cassidy, allowing Team Rocket, Ash and the gang, and Officer Jenny to escape with all the Pokemon. When they run outside the broadcast tower, though, they're still blocked by a gate, so Officer Jenny has to have Ghastly break through it, and it thankfully is able to, allowing all the other Pokemon to run off onto the island and hopefully reunite with all of their trainers. Before Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny and Team Rocket can make their own leave, though, Butch and Cassidy then show up. They weren't done yet. The Smog was not good enough. However, they noticed that all the Pokemon had already escaped, so they realized that they could no longer make that their goal, so they decide to at least get their revenge on Jessie and James, challenging them to a battle. Still being able to potentially use their Drowsy for battling at least. However, Ash stops Butch and Cassidy from battling Team Rocket, as he claims that he wanted to be the one to beat their asses as revenge for what they did to all the Pokemon. He orders his Pikachu to use Thundershock on Butch and Cassidy specifically, but Drowsy then teleports in front of Pikachu before he can do this in order to stop him. Pikachu still tries to go in for the Thundershock, but Drowsy simply teleports out of the way and then teleports right back to in front of Pikachu as it attempts to attack it, but then Arbok jumps in and goes for a bind attack, only for Drowsy to just teleport again. Fucking cheater. Drowsy then knocks Pikachu and Arbok down, leading Jessie and James to command their other three Pokemon, Victreebel, Lickitung, and Weezing, to attack, but Drowsy simply counters with a Mega Punch, sending them flying, knocking out all of Jessie, James, and Ash's Pokemon, even though Ash still had plenty that he could use, but he just didn't for some reason. With all the Pokemon down, Butch and Cassidy realized that they could take this opportunity to simply use Drowsy to mind control all of the Pokemon on the island for a second time, so they ordered Drowsy to do so, and he begins using his Psychic attack, Metronome. Since Butch and Cassidy had just told him that any Psychic attack would work, obviously, so he just went for Metronome, because it would just pick a random Psychic attack. As Tracy explained Metronome's capabilities to Ash and the gang, it was revealed that Togepi actually knew this move as well, and once it saw Drowsy doing it, it was inspired to do it as well. Ash and Pikachu dash over to Drowsy in an attempt to stop it from using its metronome, but it turns out that this wasn't needed, as Togepi's metronome was powerful enough to fucking blow up the entirety of Butch and Cassidy's headquarters, being the tower, and completely knocking out their Drowsy, rendering Butch and Cassidy unable to escape as Officer Jenny loads them up into the police car and sends them off to jail. Later, as an award for saving Mandarin Island, Ash is given an honorary citizenship to the island as thanks by Officer Jenny, as well as all the trainers who were extremely grateful for Ash for successfully returning their Pokemon to him. Jenny then asks Ash where Team Rocket went, explaining that they disappeared right after the battle, and she wanted to give them an honorary citizenship as well, due to the fact that they had finally gotten rid of their evil ways and decided to help for once. As Ash confirmed that he didn't know where Team Rocket went, we then see Team Rocket on a nearby rooftop observing, and James complaining that they couldn't get this award that Jenny wanted to give them, stating how it would have been nice to actually get an award for a change. Especially an award for being nice, but Jessie and Meowth then yelled at James, reminding him that they didn't want an award for being nice, they wanted a reward for being evil, because they had to steal Pikachu, because that was the status quo. Ash and the gang then say goodbye to all the Mandarin Island folk as they take off on Lapras towards the next island. While they're riding on Lapras, Tracy comments on the fact that Team Rocket never seems to win unless they go good and work with Ash and the gang. I don't know why Tracy was the one to point this out. He's only seen Team Rocket like 3 times, but I mean, he was right, and Ash and Misty knew this as well, as they laughed at the sheer protagonist power they had, stating that they had to share the protagonist power with Team Rocket sometimes. No, I'm joking, they didn't actually say that at the end. But Togepi sure found it funny, as it was laughing, that little bastard. This bastard's powerful, man. It has a metronome that can explode things. Man, I hope we get more explanation on that.